cases from from originating from here. So, but that's what they say. Now, do I feel like it's better, Todd? It feels like it's better. It looks better. Things seem to begin back normal little by little. But China's a huge place, man, and like I said, the stats and numbers. There's no way we would be able to verify that.
So, as you're there, like, what would you, what we're experiencing in the U.S., what do you think it'll look like in the next couple weeks?
All right, that's a great question. So, and that's why I wanted to do this with you guys because, like I said, I know you have a lot of people from different backgrounds, jujitsu friends. They listen to this, and I've been getting a lot of messages from my friends. And I'm still going through what you guys are going, but I went through the meat of it a month ago. Like I said, a month ago, guys, I'm telling you, man, like you're gonna the big problem. There's gonna be a couple problems. You're gonna get so much information from so many directions. You don't know what to believe, and especially if you have a family, like a young family, you're gonna, of course, you're very concerned for them. So, the most difficult thing for us at the beginning was, again, like we would have to compare the English and the Chinese information, see if it matched up. And the numbers were staggering, Todd. Like it was like daily, like 200 new infections, 150 infections, 320 infections. So every day we would check how many infections and how many people died. And the numbers were staggering, man. So that's what I would say first is try to be careful on what you look for information. You're going to need information. What I've been following from here is LATimes.com. They have an update like on how many infections, how many people have died. I think LA Times, it seems like they're not trying to blow this thing up. So that's all I look at. I look at that, a little bit of some other, but that's mainly what I watch to keep news of what's going on over there. So for me, that was my first big mistake, and I think you guys should be careful of. Don't try to read everything. If you try to read everything, you're going to hear a bunch of crazy stories. Like, I don't even know. You would understand this, Todd, because of your background. Like during times like this, you would think people will try to help each other out, but for some reason, like people would send out crazy stuff, man. Like people would send out these official looking things, like messages on WeChat. They'd be like, "Oh, tonight at 12 o'clock midnight, all Americans, if they can't leave, then they will not be allowed to leave China." And of course, your rational thinking is, "Ah, man, it's not like that." But the other part of you is like, all the Americans are asking each other on WeChat, like, "Hey, man, should we hit the road? Should we do this?" And again, you have a young family, you have responsibilities, man. Like many sleepless nights, Todd. Like, so that's the tough part. There's gonna be a lot of information. Some's real, some's fake. I've been out of the United States a long time. I don't even use WhatsApp, but I would tell people be careful of all the information. Number two, the biggest thing people ask me again is, do you see people sick? From my understanding, again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a researcher, I'm not a doctor, but from my understanding, what they told us here and what I compared to, on my own research, it's not always going to be visible. So again, this is what the news, Todd. This is what I'm saying. So originally the quarantine was 7 days, right? They asked everybody to stay on 7 days, and then like you would hear this stuff. They're like, sometimes this thing doesn't show for 28 days. So your head is going to explode. You're like, man, like, okay, so everybody's done their quarantine theoretically. Now we can go outside. We see our neighbors, not a big problem. Then it's like, well, it could be 28 days until this thing shows. So I still don't know the veracity of that. I don't know the accuracy of that. But that's a huge difference, right? And again, if you have a family, you're like, man, you see this thing, you're like, all right, maybe this guy is sick, and you don't know. So you start looking at people, you start looking at your neighbors, you start looking at these people like, man, like, all right, this guy looks sick, but they're not necessarily going to show it. The third thing is masks. So everybody asked me about masks. So again, same thing. You had these very official looking doctors go on and say masks have been proven. We've done the research, we've done the studies, masks work. And then you have other very credible like CDC. I was looking towards the U.S. Organizations at that time. Last month, I was looking at the U.S. organization to see what they said about masks. They said masks aren't the most important thing. And again, I'm not a doctor, but man, that caused a lot of headaches too, because I think in America now it's very hard to get masks. In China, even now, you can't get a mask. Like our local pharmacies, stuff like that, I don't think we can get masks. So we haven't been able to buy masks for a long time. So again, it makes you very, very paranoid. You're like, oh man, everybody has masks, but we're only down to like 10 masks. How are we going to use these things? And it'll cause you a lot of stress. So as far as my understanding, What I do, this is what I do, guys. This is just me. So at home, I don't wear a mask. I don't do any of that stuff. From what I've read, outdoors, you don't really need a mask. All right, it's only in confined areas. And the mask that has I've seen, what I saw that seems to be very effective or of good use, it's called the N95. The surgical mask, there's a lot of holes in them, so it may not necessarily protect you against anything. So that when I go to the market here, when I go buy close quarters, it's indoors at the market. I wear N95 mask. You should be able to buy those things still in America. And then it's made by 3M, I think. It's called a 3M N95. That seems to be like the standard good mask, quality mask. And then I wear like rubber gloves, rubber surgical gloves. And then, that's how I go out. And I think, that's prudent in my opinion. But and then the last thing I would say is, again, you're gonna, as human beings, we cling on to the good news. You want to hear there's recovery. Again, you're gonna be watching the stats closely. Right